The future of work and leadership always starts with us. Welcome to the Dr. Ginny Show. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Dr. Ginny Show. My special guest today is F. Foster. She's an author of Change Starts with Choice and also an intuitive psychology coach in training. F speaks today about helping leaders to understand the power of their choice and how clarity leads to confident action and meaningful change. So we're going to have an empowering conversation, especially as we deal with transformations that are happening all the time at our work and now with AI and integrations and all kinds of things that we're being told, encouraged, nudged, or voluntold to do at work. This is the time to talk about how can we understand the power of choice and how can we leverage that power to help our teams. So welcome to our Dr. Ginny Show podcast, Ev.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Ev, let's start off by sharing with our audience, what are they going to learn by listening to us today?
We always have choice in the way that we react to things. We have choice in things that we do. We have choice just by taking a little beat and then thinking about the next step rather than just thinking it's out my control or I can't do anything about this. There is always room for choice.
I love that option. Let's start by sharing a little bit of your journey. I know that you began to do this out of passion. So what were you doing before and what are you doing now?
My first choices came and the realization to make different choices when I actually went through a divorce, because I was in a very abundant lifestyle. I was in a marriage, 4 young children, and something about where I was and what I was doing just wasn't right for me. People thought I was being really selfish by making the choice I did. But now, 14 years later, I can see that my children have had a much better mum, have had a much better relationship with me, with their dad, than they would have had we stayed together. So that was the first time probably I had a really hard choice to make, and felt at the time I didn't have a choice, but obviously, as I say, we always do. And then because of that, I came back into real estate and set up a business because I needed to earn money and keep the kids. And again, that was my choice to set up my own business rather than go and work for somebody else, because it did not suit my lifestyle to be told when to be in the office, when to leave the office, what days I could work, etc. It's been quite a journey, and all the way through that, having had different challenges, always just remembering that ultimately I need to trust myself and the choices that I make.
Or tell us where you're joining us from. I just want to share that with our audience.
Yeah, I'm in Glasgow in Scotland. It's kind of a little bit light now, which is nice at 5 o'clock at night. But that's one thing we don't have a choice over is the weather. But we can choose how we react to it, right? We can make sure we have our umbrella, we have our sunscreen, we have our sandals, and sometimes we need them all in one day over here. But
yes, one of our community members, Katrina Furman, she's known as the Connector Queen. She's traveling the world and she said, there is no bad weather, only bad clothing.
Absolutely. And that was a Glaswegian comedian that said that, first of all, when Billy Connolly came out with that. Yeah, no such thing as bad weather. We just have to wrap up or strip off. That's it.
So tell me, Lev, I know that in the real estate business that you are running, you are a leader. So right now, what are some of the biggest challenges that you are seeing leaders are facing from your vantage point?
A big one that we're all facing is keeping a step ahead of what AI is going to mean to each of our businesses. So I am of an age where I remember before the internet, I remember before mobile phones, I remember before laptops, and each stage it was like, oh my goodness, what's this going to do? What's this going to do for our business? And each stage, and now can you imagine traveling anywhere without one of these in your hand? You can't. So I think leaders have a choice of saying, okay, we need to embrace it. I don't need to know exactly how it works, but I do think we need to know how to integrate it. and keep that step ahead, because there's no doubt that it's going to be an absolute, the next few years, it's there everywhere now, right? Every time you go into an email, you've got your Gemini bot, or depending what it is. So we have to really embrace the change. And also, when you have people maybe push against, I have a lot of my agents will say, no, I'm not doing, yes, you are, whether you know it or not. So let's just kind of get on the journey with that. That would be my biggest thing. We're in a people business. It's not going to replace agents. It's not going to replace realtors, in the US, but it's going to make a lot of the jobs that we have to do much easier and take up a lot less time. So embrace it.
Now, some people may give you the counter argument, yes, and that means you won't need as many people. So, are you going to get rid of us because now I'm automated, or a lot of what I do that was required is being automated? So, therefore, I'm going to lose my job. So, how are you dealing with that as it relates to being a leader who has to answer to these questions that some of your team members may ask you?
In my business, all my agents are self-employed agents. So they are the social media managers of their own business. They are the answering phones of their own business. They are a lot of the tasks that AI are actually going to take away from them. There's one thing that AI can't do, and that is sit with a customer in their living room and take on a listing. That's not going to happen, because people still like that connection. I can only really speak for my business and my agent's business, and I really genuinely think they'll actually have more time with the clients, with the vendors, than they will just now, because of all the other tasks that they do. I know, obviously, people maybe in the social media space, the digital marketing, yes, there may be job casualties that come about by that, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't embrace the AI. Why not then learn a new skill, or learn how to do that even better? I think for me in my industry, it's only going to be an enhancement.
Yes. And I feel the same way for us. I in the coaching industry have already learned about a huge shift or disruption, which is some of the big companies are bringing in AI coaches to coach at a certain level of the organization, and only senior leadership are going to have the privilege to have a human coach. And I think that the approach is innovative and necessary, and I believe that eventually, after it's tested out, we're going to learn that even though an AI coach could handle the very tangible types of questions like, I want to improve my communication skills. What should I be doing? Like those kinds of questions, it will not be able to work on what I work and what really good coaches work on, which is the mindset, what's between people's ears, and also picking up on those subtle movements and energy shifts that when someone gives you an answer, you can dig a little deeper and learn what's really underneath their answer. And that's the human aspect of coaching that AI may still yet fall short on. Now, that doesn't mean it may stay that way, right? But for now, it seems like you that the human connection, the ability to build those relationships and connect on a human level and feel seen and heard, that's going to always give us that extra edge. As we talk about you talking about choice and helping leaders and people understand the power of their choices and how clarity leads to confident and meaningful change, I know that you have a story very close to your heart as it relates to your upbringing that is also spurring your passion.
It's only through coaching, actually, that this then became apparent to me, that this year and the incidents that happened were very important to me. I was brought up in a very, oh, we'll do that tomorrow. And we will, we'll save for a rainy day, and we can't afford that just now. And we're waiting for your dad's retirement, and we're waiting for this and this and that. I was comfortable. I never was hungry, but there was not a lot of spare money around. And when my dad eventually retired after 40 years of saving, putting away into retirement, A few months after that, he was debilitated by a massive stroke and left paralysed and left, in a wheelchair with my mum, who was only 52 at that time, as his full time carer. So the cruise and the waiting for retirement and the let's wait for a rainy day never came. And the same
Mm.
year, my grandmother, who passed away because she lived with us. So again, it was, well, when my gran was 90, so we can actually talk about the fact that we knew our time was kind of, not going to last that long, and then she passed away. Dad had his stroke. And I just remember at that point, not realizing at the time, but thinking, why does everybody wait until such and such happens? Or I'll be happy when dot, dot, dot. I'll be happy when I get this. And that really changed my attitude to a lot of things that I do. That happened to me in my 20s. I think I probably was a little bit wild and maybe a little bit reckless I'm just going to do that now without too much thought round about. Then becoming a mum and, becoming a business owner and a leader, you have to give a little bit more thought to just being so free and so reckless. But this kind of putting off something that you can do now, why do we do that? Why do humans think that we'll wait for dot, dot, dot?
Yeah, I like that because I know the leaders who are listening to us are very high driving, high achieving, high performing. In many cases, we sacrifice a lot of family time for work because work is what's putting food on the table in many cases. And I love you bringing this message into us because it's always good to hear that having the self awareness to know we're making a choice and to choose how we are living our lives and working within living our lives is very significant for our overall fulfillment. And when you make that choice to say, what can we do given the time we have free or during the time we have available that would help me live the most fulfilling life that I can? Then when you get to that end or when you get to retirement, you feel like you have already lived. You're not waiting for your life to pick up when you retire, when by then, hopefully, you still be healthy. Hopefully, the people that you would like to enjoy life with are still around. Hopefully. What if we create the best life we can now and then continue to adjust over time based on whatever we're facing at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at three phases of life, so you've got your learning phase, which, people go to school, they go to nursery, they go to school, they go to college or university, and then they have their working phase. And then they have their freedom phase, which is apparently retirement. That's just not real life. We have to really kind of look at during our learning and phase, okay, we're usually children, then young adults, but during our working phase, we should have some freedom as well and not put off to this dot, dot, dot day because you don't know whether it's going to come. You hope it does, but what if it doesn't? And I don't believe in work-life balance. I think it's a myth. I think you have to have that counterbalance. And as an owner of a business and a leader in a business and four children, okay, they're older now, but I had to make choices at times to be fully present for the kids, to be fully present at work. And sometimes the lines were a little bit blurred, but I made a real decision to be present there and present here rather than trying to fit it all in because who benefits from that? Nobody. We don't as business leaders, we don't as mums because you're then get either the mum guilt or the business guilt. So we have to really look at prioritizing our time. And again, that is choice. That is choice.
So, what is the one myth you would like to bust about choice? And I know we're talking about business, leadership, life, not waiting until the end, being able to decide what is the best course of action for you and your family in whatever particular phase or season of life you're in. And I know that you're choosing to work with leaders to bring this up that we have a choice. What is one myth that you would like to bust?
One of the myths is that because of my training in intuitive psychology as well, I really do believe we have all the answers already inside us. We don't need the external validation to tell us that we're doing something right. If we were more in tune with our intuition, then as leaders and as even if you're not a leader, just a human being, trust yourself. We don't need to listen to another lesson on something that we know to be true. So we need to really trust ourselves more. And I think as leaders, a lot of what we do is we get strategy coaching, don't we? And we get action and we get goal coaching. But what about the coaching that actually makes you sit down and go, what is it that I really want? What do I need? That is not a selfish thing to ask yourself, because if you really get what you want or you need, then everybody else round about you has a better person. It's the more authentic you.
What I'm getting from listening to you, Ev, is that when I know what drives me, what motivates me, and for me, it's why I'm doing what I'm doing, I show up lit up. I show up shining from the inside out, and I'm able to communicate my vision. I'm able to be creative. I'm able to influence others to do the work that we are doing for the business that we're running. And you're able to show up for your stakeholders, your clients, your partners, your vendors in a much more different way than if we were just checking the box and going through the day like a grind and surviving. And I 100% agree that asking ourselves the questions, what is it that I really want and what is it that I really need, is fundamental. And yet, so many of us don't make the time to do that. And that's where coaches like you and like me, uh, I'm not I'm not just saying that because we are coaches, but that's where we come in because we're able to help you create that safe space, that structure, and that reflection that is, to me, fundamental just to live the best life that you can. Thank you for sharing that in terms of listening to our intuition and not looking for external validation. I always say when I coach with my clients that most of us have been trained to have an external locus of control, and my goal working with my clients is to help them develop the internal locus of control where they are self driven and not waiting for the external validation to say, you know what, Ev, you're on the right track. You know what, Dr. Ginny, you're on the right track. It's that internal compass. And that to me does not happen, at least in my experience, it doesn't happen automatically. It happens by doing what I call the work. And that's what a lot of the clients that we work with do, the work. So, Ev, based on what you share with us so far regarding intuition and knowing that you always have a choice, what would you say, at least in your environment, are the most needed leadership competencies at this time?
As you mentioned, the word is to have a vision. If leaders sometimes fall into leadership positions and don't have a vision, and that vision has to align with your passion and your purpose, because that's when people then get the best out of you. And as you say, from the inside out. So having a vision is really, really important. As a leader, to be your authentic self, be who you are instead of who society thinks you should be. Get the masks off. Stop having masks on. Get the real, true person. And if needed, and if it, show vulnerability. If that vulnerability is a strength, because somebody doesn't want to see somebody that they can't relate to. They've got it all together. Life's perfect. Everything's grand. Everything's super. People don't relate to that because they want a leader that they can actually relate to, with a good vision, with purpose, with passion, with great communication skills, with caring, but who is themselves. They're authentically them. In the leadership role, who do they go to when they do want to maybe have a moment of vulnerability, or when they don't feel that safety within what they're doing? That's where, again, going back to the AI scenario, AI is never going to hold somebody in that space. AI is never going to give that support or just give that kind of coaching role, and nothing to do with strategy. Just be that person that they can really genuinely be themselves with. Being a leader is not an easy task. But I do think when I look at leadership and I ask this question, if I'm doing kind of talks to people, hands up, who considers himself a leader, in a room. And if people don't put their hand up, my next question is, well, who is leading your life?
It's not you.
You know? And quite often you'll get, men say, oh, my wife leads my life, but, that's okay.
Yes, I agree with you. Self-leadership, I believe everybody's a leader of people if we have the honor to do that. Of self, of course, hands down. What gets in the way, in your opinion, of people developing these skills that you mentioned of vision and purpose and passion and being vulnerable? What gets in the way? Because I'm sure there's some of our audience members who can relate. And I want them to know that if you're there, you're not alone. Many of us experience this where we struggle with showing up authentically and taking off the masks, as you call it. What do you think gets in the way of that?
People have a perception that somebody wants them to be a certain way. I was quite a young woman and in a leadership position, and I very much lived in my masculine because I thought that that's what was the right way to do it. And it absolutely wasn't. Absolutely living in my feminine, but being a strong leader can happen. So it was exhausting. It was exhausting. So I was being the way that I thought would get me further in the job that I was doing at the time and would get me more respect and all these kind of things. And actually, it was the complete opposite.
Tell me, what does being in your masculine looks like? Because I know exactly what you're speaking about, but if somebody's living this, who's
Mm-hmm.
listening to us, it's like asking a fish, how's the water? And they said, what water?
Mm-hmm.
How you were showing up, living in your
Well, I
masculine.
was absolutely leading with fear. And I was leading with, this is the way it'll be. And, I'm right, you're wrong. And it was leading out of a completely different sort of sense of nobody else's feelings were taken into account. For me, being in the is much softer. It's actually much more empathetic. It's looking at a team scenario and listening to your team. And being in the masculine, I mean, even the way I dressed was very much authoritative kind of, energy. So I was commanding respect instead of earning respect. And that's a very different thing. And if you don't earn respect, then people don't automatically give it, but you're trying to command it and it doesn't work.
And I want to really clarify for those of us who may be confusing gender with what we're talking about. We're speaking about energy, masculine energy, feminine energy, like the yin and yang. And we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. And what I'm trying to say is that when, as women and as leaders, we are leading from the role model that we see in society, which is senior leaders. Growing up in technology, we're mostly masculine. The energy can be very downright demanding, commanding, command and control. Now, what I want to share is that leaders who are able to integrate the masculine energy, drive, push, deliver with the empathy, with the care, with the connection, anybody can do this. Those leaders were always my favorite. They were the ones I worked for the hardest. When you're able to integrate the energies, you show up in your best self as a leader, regardless of what your body looks like. And that's what I want to double click on to make sure that people don't think that masculine is bad and feminine is good, or feminine is bad and masculine is better. Each have beautiful qualities. And when we have the wherewithal to bring them together, that's when we bring our whole self to work, because we're not just let's drive and deliver at all cost. No, I had leaders who led me and who cared. and who questioned and who wanted to hear what I had to say. So thank you for that, because there's also what we call the toxic masculine energy. And then there is the healthy masculine energy. And then there's the toxic female energy that could be a little manipulative and cunning and passive aggressive and all the things that we've known, quote unquote, women to do to get their way. And then there's the positive and healthy feminine energy that is there to serve and support and care and collaborate. So I don't want to throw a blanket to say this is good and that's bad. No. Healthy on both ends, integrated, is where the magic happens. Ev, as we wrap up our session, where are you seeing the greatest opportunity for growth based on what you are experiencing in the business world?
The greatest opportunity for growth is people beginning to realize that they are a little bit more in control of what they want to do and what they want from life. We all have lots of things out there about living your best life and manifestation and all these kind of things. I genuinely think, and it might just be the people that I surround myself with, but they are beginning to it, in, embrace a bit more maybe spiritual life. I don't mean religious life, but actually realize that, we sit on a planet that spins round. We're a tiny little part of the whole humanity. And I know there's a lot of things going on in the world that are horrible, horrible things, but in my world, my people seem to care a lot more about the world and the world at large. Now, I'm sure that's not the same for everybody, but then again, I surround myself with people who think the same way as me, I guess, and who want to help other people live their best life, but also help others on the way. And it comes back to the kind of, the embracing and the collaboration and, because you're successful doesn't mean I can't be successful. So let's help each other. That to me is something that if more people embraced, then the world would be a better place.
I agree. And it's so needed right now. It is
Yeah.
so needed. Ev, I know that we didn't talk much about your book, Change Starts with Choice. What would you say there's one message on your book that you would invite our listeners to embrace? What would that be?
It would be about, the change starts with choice. What is it that you want? Comes back to that. If you're in a situation and you're feeling stuck, so never mind just leaders at the moment, there are particularly women is who I deal with in the mate. They feel they're stuck and they have no choice. Just step back and just think about where you do have a choice. It doesn't need to blow up your life. It doesn't need to be the biggest thing that you change. One wee thing. That's kind of my thing. I'll say to it, one wee thing, and it's a very Scottish expression, but what one wee thing can you do differently tomorrow, today, that will change just that one wee thing for you? Doesn't have to be a huge, big thing.
And that applies to everyone, right? Because if I can think of one wee thing that I could be doing, what would that be for me? And I could tell you, if I really think hard about my day, which I tend to be very intentional about it, is when I finish work, if there's one wee thing that I could do for myself is sit down to meditate. Because 20 minutes of doing it religiously, I usually do it before I go to bed, but when I finish work, I'm so loaded mentally, like the mental overload is so much that if I were able to just take 20 minutes before I make dinner or anything else and just sit in my meditation seat, I'm going to start doing that today. And it's possible. It's a choice I can make that if I cannot take 20 minutes to myself, I have bigger problems.
Some people might not be able to go from 0 to 20 minutes. Take 2 minutes. Just take 2 minutes. It's about building a habit. It's about taking that and thinking, I've got 2 minutes. I'm going to start a new habit. Take that 2 minutes, put your hand in your heart, breathe into your body and think, this is all I need to think about right now. And then you get on with your evening or the rest of your day. And when you feel the benefit of that 2 minutes, then take it to 4 minutes, take it to 5 minutes and build it to 20 minutes. Because I think Some people will go, there's no way that I have got 20 minutes to do I would love to do that, but I don't have 20 minutes. You have definitely 2 minutes.
I'm so glad you share that because thinking about it from my lens. I am a meditator. Like I'm a transcendental meditator. So 20 minutes for me is like two, right? So you're right. You think about how much time do you have and make it work for you. For me, the 20 minutes will be heavenly because that means I will get in that theta wave zone in those 20 minutes. So thank you for that. So pick what is it that we think that you want to work on, that habit that you want to start, and how can you start it one small step at a time? Because the alternative is to say, I can't do it. Ginny, it's just not possible. My schedule, the kids, I have to go, go to the sports and all of the things that get in the way. We've been there.
Mhm.
And so if it's not that, it doesn't have to be our thing. What is your thing? So we want to challenge you, nudge you lovingly to say, what is the one thing you're going to do? Thank you, Ev. So let's go into our lightning round as we wrap up, Ev. This is where we have a little fun. If you could give your younger self advice, what would you tell yourself?
You can and you can't. Just do it. I would actually say just do it because I was held back a little bit from doing things that I wanted to do. Just do it.
And I hear so much depth in what you're saying because I know you said earlier that you were on the wild side for a while. So I knew you did a lot of things, but I'm getting a sense from your share that there were times in your life that potentially you wish you had just done it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
love. Thank you, Ev. Ev, if you had no limits on resources, time, money, and you could do one project that would bring you so much joy, what would that be?
I would go on a worldwide cruise.
Whoa, exciting.
Yeah.
Where are we stopping? Just all over?
We are going for probably about 6 months, and we are stopping wherever we want to stop. We are seeing the world out there. I've travelled a bit, but not to the places that I think a cruise would take me. And yeah, and then just meet lots of people and see lots of different cultures. That is something and it will happen. It will happen.
Is there one destination that you've been wanting to go to that you haven't? I know for me, that destination has been Australia and New Zealand. I have had that in my bucket list for years now. I priced it. I did the whole thing along with the safari. Those three destinations are definitely on my bucket list. What is that for you?
So New Zealand is actually one. A very good friend of mine emigrated to New Zealand, must be 13 years ago now. So that would definitely be one of the destinations I would go to.
Beautiful. And the last question is, what is the best piece of advice you've received?
Best piece of advice, what you focus on expands.
Is that from Tony Robbins?
I'm not sure. I've heard a couple of versions of it, but definitely when I have a thought in my head that it's a negative thought, I don't expand on it. Or some people will say where attention goes, energy flows. There's different variations, but there is no doubt that what you focus on expands. Yeah, definitely.
I've been listening to a lot of neuroscientists and people that go on some of the podcasts that I listen to, and there is science behind our focus. When we tell the brain to look for something to be grateful for, the brain begins to scan the environment looking for things to be grateful for. If you tell your brain that the world really sucks, it's horrible, the brain will start connecting to everything around it that is bad. So in a way, this is bringing us back full circle to say we have a choice. We have a choice on where we focus our mind, our energy, our intention, our time, our finances. We have a choice. So what a beautiful message. What will be your parting words?
To make a choice, you don't always know exactly what the destination is. You don't need to know the big picture. Comes back to that one wee thing. What is that one wee thing? that you can change, or you have the choice to change, that's going to make a big difference to you or to your family, or more importantly to you? Because I do believe when we're happy in ourselves, our family benefits from it and the people round about us benefit from it. So yeah, what is that one wee thing that you're going to change? It could be that you want to change, the way that you do your hair, or anything, just one thing, one wee thing.
I love it. Ev, thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing your story, part of your story, and gifting us the perspective that we have a choice. Even though we've heard that before, it's really important to see where you are today. When you hear Ev share with us, you have a choice. And what is that one wee thing you're going to focus on as you leave our conversation today? So I would love two things from you. Number one, as you're listening to us and wrapping up, leave us a comment and tell us what was your number one takeaway from our conversation. And number two, we're going to lovingly challenge you to share this conversation with someone who you believe needs to hear this message. And by doing that, you help us spread the word. You help us connect with others who may not know who we are and that we are here for them. So with that, Ev, thank you for being with us. For our beautiful audience, thank you for taking the time to listen to this conversation. I hope that you have taken away some tools and a new perspective that can help you lead in a more empowering way as we deal with changes all around us. So, in the meantime, live with purpose, lead with joy. We will see you at the next episode. If you enjoyed today's content, I appreciate your review so others can find us, and share it with your friends. And to stay in touch, join our community to receive valuable strategies and expert advice at drginnybaro.com. See you soon.